So what is it really like to make the decision to move to another country, pack up your house, and go? Well, today I'm going to tell you what it's like, because 1 year ago, my dogs and I drove away from Oregon after dissolving my household there and went to Mexico to live without a real destination in mind. So I'd like to tell you about mostly the physical aspects of making this move. There are a lot of details like how to have a cell phone and what to do with your banking and mail. And I'm not really talking about those subjects right now. I'm mostly talking about the actual physical aspects of packing up a life and moving to another country. When I moved over a year ago now, the last thing on my mind was making videos. So I don't have a lot of video footage of that time, but I do have Vigo's baby pictures. Which he was still a puppy then, so I will fill in the gaps with some puppy pictures for you to look at. I hope you like them. I adopted Vigo when he was 9 weeks old, and by the time we left for Mexico, he was about 7 months old. So these are some of his youngest little baby pictures. There is a lot to do when you've made the decision to move to Mexico or any foreign country. For me, it took about 2 months from when I decided to go to the day I actually set off. There are so many details, from visas to your banking, cell phone, but in this video, I'm mainly talking about what I think is the hardest part, the physical part of dissolving one household and moving what you've decided to take with you to a new place. It's an exciting time, and all of you who are in the middle of it right now, I want to tell you it's worth it. And it's not easy, but you're doing it, and you're going to be so glad you did. Like I said, I think it's one of the hardest parts of transplanting yourself, at least in the top 3. But if you're excited about what you're doing, you know the big picture of moving and starting a new life somewhere else, that excitement can sustain you and keep you going. When I decided to move to Mexico a year ago, I had many doubts and many fears, but I was desperate to make this big change in my life, so I was very motivated to get the job done and move to Mexico. It's an exciting time for sure. I had just been laid off from work unexpectedly. I hope that you are making the move for better reasons than that, but either way, it's a fine choice, Mexico. It's a wonderful place to live. I should make a timeline because there is just so much to take care of and it's complicated. But for now, let me just tell you my story and how I did it. I was never anything like a hoarder in Oregon, but I did have a 3-bedroom house with most of the normal things that people have in their houses, and that's a lot of stuff. I hadn't been in that house very long, just a couple of years, but things had happened in the world, like the pandemic, that made me a little cautious. And though I wasn't a prepper, I didn't have the latest go bag or a ham radio, I was cautious enough to kind of stockpile a bunch of non-perishable food, dog food, and things like shampoo, soap, and toothpaste that I knew I would always use. So when I decided to move to Mexico, obviously the buying stopped. And I had to figure out what to do with all that. Mostly I gave the food away. And some of the smaller things like soap and toothpaste and shampoo I brought with me in the car because, you know, I'll always use those things. So I was not a prepper, but I was cautious and I had a lot of stockpile of food. So we ate as much as we could, me and the dogs, and gave away the rest. Oh, look, it's raining again. With 2 big dogs and I, there was only so much I could take in the car. I had taken off and left home before, like to go sailing for 6 months, but on those kind of trips, I had always planned to come back, set up a home again, and go back to work. I certainly didn't want to have to buy everything all over again if I had to come back to the States and start working again. So the question was, keep essentials in storage or really get rid of everything? The only other choice is to have a moving company take your household things all the way across the border and to your new home when you get settled. I think the prevailing wisdom on the internet is to just get rid of everything if you're planning to move permanently and just buy new stuff in your new home. I didn't know where our home was going to be. I thought we'd just, explore for a few months. So even if I had wanted to, I had nowhere to send all my household things. The good thing about sending your things, though, is that if you get temporary residency, you can bring 1 load of your household items without any taxes. So keep that in mind if you're making this move too. My goal was to set up a new household in Mexico and stay indefinitely. So it was hard getting rid of everything I knew and loved and had bought because nobody wants your stuff. After you've shopped for it and paid money for it, believe me, not too many things people want. So since I wanted to set up a new household in Mexico, I brought as much kitchen stuff as I could, but it's not a huge car and there's the 3 of us already in there. So I managed to bring some pots and pans, a set of sheets, a towel or 2, a pillow or 2, and in the end, I'm glad I had those things. But I didn't think it through though, because the first 6 months we were traveling, every 1 to 4 weeks we would move. So most of that stuff just stayed at the bottom of my car and did not get unpacked in the short-term rentals that we had for those 6 months. And until we got here near Pátzcuaro, and I unloaded some of that and we're using it today, so I'm glad to have it. The sheets were especially useful. In every short-term rental that we had, I would cover the couches and furniture with the sheets. So they got a lot more use for covering furniture than they did for actual bed sheets, and I was glad to have them. So I have Eric working on the painting, and I have another guy working on the plumbing, and meanwhile, my dogs are very nervous. The house is a wreck, and look at that. Crazy moving time, and poor little doggies are so stressed out. And now there's an alarm going off. I felt pretty bad about making the dogs endure such a long driving trip, but Vigo was only 7 months old, poor little guy, and now he still doesn't like the car because of all that driving we had to do the first week. But I was desperate for a change in life. I really needed to go, and I never thought of leaving them behind. They were going to come with me the whole time, and they did. And now we're all very happy here in Mexico. I was motivated to get out of Oregon as fast as possible. Without a tenant in that house, I was paying the mortgage and bills myself with no job and no income. So every month my savings account was taking a hit. It just struck me how horrible today is. I'm trying to move. We're camping in the house. I've got unemployment to qualify for, so I can get paid some unemployment. The house is an absolute mess. And on top of everything else, the whole plumbing is going crazy. Everything's backed up. So now I have a plumber on the way. I decided to calculate how much a small storage locker would cost for 2 years and see if that was more or less than the cost of the things that I wanted to keep. It was less. Maybe I was overvaluing my possessions, but I thought if I keep these things for 3 years or less in storage, it would be worth it to me to keep them. If it went beyond that, then it was a foolish mistake. It kind of changes things when 2 months after I got the storage unit, they raised the price by a significant amount. But what's done is done. So I have a storage room in Oregon with my favorite things in it. Whether I get it down here to Mexico, I don't know yet, but I'm hoping so. So once I made that decision, everything else in the house had to go one way or the other. From all your papers, from taxes, insurance, mortgage, all the papers you have to go somewhere. Obviously, all the furniture, appliances, everything needs to be parted with one way or the other. It's a great upheaval in someone's life, as anyone who's moved long distance will tell you. I had moved many times before that in my life, but moving to a different country is a little different. I put a few pieces of furniture on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace to sell, and that went pretty well, maybe a few bucks. But for the most part, the stuff you have, not too many people are going to want. I gave away my sofa for free because I couldn't get all the dog fur off of it. I did sell a desk and some other things, and that was great. But every day there would be strangers coming to my house to pick up things for free or for money, back and forth, slowly emptying my house, which is a great visual reminder that I was doing it. I was making this change and we were gonna go. Depending on how motivated you are, this process could take weeks or months. And for some people, it's a very emotional thing to let go of loved possessions. If you're thinking about a move overseas, maybe down the line, even 5 years from now or whatever, it's not too early to consider that possible move when you're living your life now. Do you really want to buy that new living room chair? It feels good to be liked, but what doesn't necessarily feel good is the work and effort it takes to get that way. Many of us are bogged down with so many possessions, And when it comes time to move, it's not that fun to actually get rid of them. If you are someone who went through a marriage and got a lot of household stuff as gifts, like good china and silverware, or if you inherited art or furniture from your family or parents, this could be a significant move in your life to get rid of these things. Consider what these things really mean to you and don't add new ones as you go. When it comes to streamlining, we're lucky to be in the digital age. If you have a book collection or a music collection, or even a photo collection, it would be great to just digitalize all that and not carry around albums and books. It really helps lighten the load, and you can put everything on a hard drive if you like. I spent some time and scanned my most important documents and put them on a separate hard drive in case I needed them. And even if you only have a few documents, you can use your phone to scan them and send them to yourself by email. That way, no matter where you are, you'll have access to a copy of those important documents. But some things you can't rush. For instance, I needed to get temporary residency in Mexico, and to do that, you need to start the process at a Mexican consulate in the United States. I was lucky enough to get an appointment within a few weeks in Portland. Others are not so lucky, and I was willing to fly to Salt Lake or to Las Vegas, anywhere on the western side of the country to make it easier to get this temporary residency. As you may know, each consulate has a little bit different rules. So if you're not qualifying in one consulate in the country, you can try another consulate. Going to Portland to get my temporary residency, hopefully, if I pass the consulate's interview. So once I got that first part of the visa in Portland, it was about 5 weeks after I had gotten laid off. So that was pretty quick. So I'm grateful for that. The only thing I had left to do that I absolutely needed to do, besides packing of course, was to find a tenant for the house, because the mortgage payment was more than I paid for all my expenses in Mexico for 1 month combined. The west coast of the United States is very expensive, so I needed a tenant in there before I left, and that was my next big project. I'm lucky that too went very well. As I was getting rid of all my things, I researched and came up with an application and a rental agreement for an Oregon tenant. I put the house up for rent and got several qualified tenants that wanted to move in right away. I chose one and we set the date for move-in. That would be the day we were leaving. Meanwhile, getting my car checked out with a new battery and new tires, getting all the dogs' vaccination records in order, getting rid of all my stuff, of course, investigating how I could use a phone in Mexico, which I ended up using Google Voice, and it's worked really well for me. I also got a Skype number, which I have not even used once, so I got rid of that. Setting up mail service, and I use ipostal1.com, which has been fine for me, no complaints there. I also had the inside of the house painted and a few other repairs done for the new tenants, which, by the way, were 2 7-foot-tall Russian men who applied for the house first. I later found out one was Russian and the other was Ukrainian, so they ran a business together, so that's cool. Maybe they weren't 7 foot tall, but they were like 6'5" each, and it really made an impression. So now I had an actual leave date, and it was only a couple of weeks away. Anxiety crept in to overpower my excitement. Fear would bug me when it was late and I was tired. I made myself a deal. I could think about risks and contingency plans during the daylight, but once the sun went down, fear was not invited into my thoughts anymore. Anyway, I was investigating driving routes and border crossings. To go from one day working and living a normal life, not knowing anything's about to change, to making a decision to leave the country and be on the road 2 months later was stressful, amazing, exciting. It was all of those things. My biggest regret about how I did all this and moving day was that I crammed way too much into the last day. It sounds so foolish now, and it was. I was cleaning the house, packing the car, taking my bed to storage, signing the rental contract with the new tenants, and driving 6 hours to see my son in California. It was crazy. And I only stayed one stressed out night in Santa Rosa to see my son, at a creepy hotel. I really regret that. But money was on my mind, and also momentum. I couldn't afford to be wasting any money on nice California hotels, and I thought the sooner I get to Mexico, the sooner I'll be saving money. But it wasn't a nice long visit with my son. By the time I got to the creepy hotel late, I was exhausted and frazzled. My son was a good sport about it, but if I had to do it over again, I'd stay another couple of days and not at the creepy hotel. We spent that first night in Santa Rosa, California, the second night down by Palm Springs, and then one night at Nogales near the border. And then we crossed. And crossing the border could be a whole nother story. Most of all, I'm just really glad we did it. I'm really glad to be in Mexico. It's been an amazing year and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Whatever got into me that month, that January, February, before I moved, I'm so grateful for the grace that came to me and allowed me to see a new direction and make a new way. It's been a wonderful time in Mexico and I highly recommend it. If you have your own story about packing up and moving to a different country, I'd love to hear about it. So thanks for watching my video. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.